Yes, my dudes. I'm Alex, and thanks for checking out another beat breakdown. Now, for some of you who've been watching the channel for a little while, you may have seen that I already brought out a video on Naismith Rambo. Now, whilst I'm not going to get into the habit of remaking videos, for this song in particular, there are a couple of reasons why we're going to give it a bit of a revamp. Firstly, this was the first video that I ever made, and I'm not saying that I know what I'm doing now, but 6 months ago, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I'd never talked to a camera before, I'd never set up lights before, I was getting cables into the shots, it was just a bit all over the place. So today, I'm just going to give it a bit of a re-up and improve the quality a bit. Secondly, I've had a bit more time now to really analyse the tune and work out a bit more about what's really going on. So if you checked out the previous video, you would have seen that we looked at the B section, but today we're going to look at both the A and the B section and work out how those two sections really relate to each other. There's a lot going on in there, so let's get straight into it. We're going to be playing in 3/4 time, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to build up the groove to the A section piece by piece. So with all of this stuff, Naismith is improvising around a theme. So I've checked out a lot of different live versions online, and there's a lot of variation in what he plays. So we're going to start at the hi-hat foot, and sometimes he plays eighth notes, sometimes he splashes quarters, but today we're just going to keep steady quarter notes going. Let's give it a go. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add dotted eighth notes on the bass drum. 1 E-ander, 2 E-ander, 3 E-ander, 1 E-ander, 2 E-ander, 3 E-ander. And again, Naismith doesn't always play all of these notes, and sometimes he might play extra bass drums leading into these notes, but this is the foundation of the groove. When we give it a go on the kit, what you'll hear is that we now have a 3/4 polyrhythm happening between our feet. 3 on the hi-hat foot, 4 on the bass drum, and this is really important to what happens later in the tune. Cool, so if you've got that down, we just want to make sure that we're really feeling it in our 3 pulse. And we're just going to add in our ride cymbal pattern. So nice and simple, we've got 1 8th note, 2 16th notes. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a. Let's see if we can add that over the top of what we got so far. And the final step is to add in some ghost notes on our snare drum. The pattern I'm playing sounds like this. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a. But of course, Naismith doesn't stick to this, so you can experiment with dynamics, experiment with adding notes in, taking notes out, experiment with space, see what you can come up with. Now it's worth a mention that I'm playing this a good 15 or so BPM slower than Naismith. The fact that he can play this so quickly, so cleanly, and with so much groove is just mental. I would definitely recommend watching a few videos of this live and checking out the different variations that he plays, because as you'd expect, he takes it to the next level. So towards the end of the A section, Naismith starts to change up his ride cymbal pattern to follow the bass drum part. Once you make this change, you can start really digging into the ride cymbal, and then the last 4 notes of the A section are going to be 4 accents on those bass drum notes. Here's a little rough version of me playing that transition. So remember that we've got our 3/4 polyrhythm, and this is where it's going to start to get really interesting. So in the last bar of the A section, where we're really digging into those dotted eighth notes between the bass drum and our ride cymbal, we're going to make a shift from the 3 being our dominant meter to the 4 being our dominant meter, which is going to totally change up the feel. Now I know that's a lot of words, and it can be quite a lot to take in, so to help you hear it, and to help me hear it, what we're going to do is we're going to have another listen to the track, and I'm going to click my sticks along to the bass drum part, which is the 4 part of our 3/4 polyrhythm. And what you'll hear is that as we transition from one section to the other, those dotted eighth notes in the A section will become our 8th notes in the B section. It sounds technical, but have a listen and it will all make sense. It's so clever, mate, and I only just worked out what was happening there the other day, and it blew my mind, man. So I suppose you could play all the way through the B section with the click in that kind of placement, but I'm not a total psychopath, so I'm just going to drop the click down to a new tempo. I tapped it out around 108 BPM. So in the B section, we've got two main feels. Playing our groove with 16th notes up on the hats, and playing our groove with triplets up on the hats. So if you're feeling confident with both the 16th note and the triplet feel, let's start to break down what's going on. So the B section that I've notated is specific to the artist in residence performance that Nate Smith did for Zildjian, but the concepts are the same throughout different versions that I've seen. So what we'll do is we'll go through 4 bars at a time, we'll have a little chat about what's happening, and I'll play each example to you twice. So make sure that your bass drum part follows the rhythms played by the other musicians. You can check out the notation to see exactly where these are placed. But bars 1 to 4, we've got 2 bars in the 16th note feel, 2 bars in the triplet feel. In the very first bar, you want to choke your ride cymbal and play your bass drum on beat 1, and then let it ring out and hit your snare drum on beat 2. From there, you're going to go into 1 8th note and 2 16th notes on the hi-hat, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a. From there on out, it's pretty straight ahead. Let's check it out. In bars 5 to 8, you're going to go into 2 bars of straight up 16th note feel. Then you're going to go into 2 bars of 8th note triplet feel. The challenge here is that when we go into 8th note triplets, instead of spacing our bass drum and our snare drum 3 notes apart, we're actually going to space them 4 notes apart. Now what that does is it creates an implied metric modulation, where your groove is going to start to sound like a 16th note-y, almost halftime kind of feel, when really it's just the placement of your backbeat in 8th note triplets. Okay, so I'm sure you've guessed what's coming up next. In bars 9 to 12, we're going to go back into 2 bars in our 16th note feel, 2 bars in our triplet feel. When you get into the triplet feel, the focus points of the bar are 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 1 and a, 2. Then we've got our hi-hat foot on beat 3, and a cheeky little bass drum on the last 16th note to lead back into the next bar. Bars 13 to 16, again, we've got that same shift in feel. So at the end of our 2 bars and 16th notes, you're going to play a single stroke roll in 30-second notes on the snare drum on beat 3 of the bar. That leads us into some nice triplet phrasing to finish off the section. 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 1 and a, 2. Make sure to get those flams in there, really give it some power, have fun with it, man. You smashed it, mate. If you've got that down, let's see if we can piece the whole thing together. Nice work, my dudes. No idea how long this video is going to be when it comes to making the edit, but if you're still watching up to this point, then you're a legend. I decided to bring this one out on a Monday because it's a remake of an old video, so I'm still going to be bringing you something new on a Wednesday. If you're digging the videos, hit the subscribe button, join that Wednesday crew, man. I'll see you next week.